It began with a shock that rippled through every corner of the global financial community. Early this morning, traders and insiders from multiple Tier 1 banks reported sudden rate flashes for both the Iraqi Dinar's IQD and the Vietnamese Dong VND. These weren't ordinary system tests or random currency fluctuations. According to multiple credible banking sources, these flashes appeared within secured international transaction networks, suggesting the start of what many analysts have long anticipated, a coordinated synchronization of rates leading toward active trading status. For years, the revaluation of the Iraqi Dinar and Vietnamese Dong has been a subject of speculation, skepticism, and hope, often discussed behind closed doors and in limited financial circles. But now, the signals appear too consistent, too widespread, and too technically specific to dismiss as rumor. Overnight, screens across several banking platforms began showing temporary rate updates, values that appeared and disappeared within seconds, an indicator that live testing was in progress. These flashes are part of a standard procedure in global banking whenever currency recalibration or activation protocols are initiated, confirming that something significant is unfolding inside the world's most secure financial systems. Reports from London, Zurich, Dubai, and Hong Kong reveal a synchronized pattern in rate testing times, suggesting a central coordination point possibly linked through the Bank for International Settlements, or BICE. The BICE, often referred to as the central bank of central banks, is known to act as the technical backbone for international currency settlements. If rate testing is being observed across different countries simultaneously, it implies the operation is not local or isolated, it's global. Financial analysts are now pointing to the probability that we are witnessing a major phase of the long-awaited global currency reset, a term used to describe a worldwide monetary adjustment designed to bring emerging market currencies like the IQD and VND to fair market value. In past instances, such as the introduction of the euro in 1999 or the Chinese yuan's inclusion into the IMF special drawing rights basket in 2016, similar network tests and rate synchronization sequences were observed weeks before official announcements. The pattern is nearly identical, controlled, technical, and deliberately concealed behind the complex structure of interbank systems. One of the more compelling aspects of this unfolding story lies in the timing. Over the last 6 months, both Iraq and Vietnam have undergone major economic reforms that align perfectly with what global financial strategists call readiness markers. Iraq, for example, has successfully increased its foreign reserves to over $120 billion, backed by steady oil exports and bilateral agreements with China, the US, and several EU nations. Meanwhile, Vietnam's currency has remained stable despite global inflation pressures, supported by growing exports in manufacturing, electronics, and textiles. These are not the signs of unstable economies. They are signs of nations preparing for international currency elevation. Moreover, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, recently concluded a series of technical assessments on Iraq's financial compliance systems, giving the country a substantial improvement rating for its anti-money laundering and exchange transparency frameworks. These developments, when combined with the live testing now being reported, suggest that both nations have reached a pivotal operational stage. Market observers have also pointed to subtle but telling moves within digital financial infrastructure. Large-scale system updates have been logged in the SCUFT and QFS quantum financial system gateways, both of which handle secure cross-border transactions and settlement instructions for central banks. In simple terms, these updates appear to be laying the digital groundwork for new exchange rate alignments. According to a private analyst in Zurich, you don't roll out this level of technical testing unless activation is near. It's costly, complex, and requires high-level authorization. If that assessment holds true, we could be on the edge of witnessing one of the most significant monetary recalibrations of the modern era, one that could reshape regional and possibly global economic balances. The atmosphere inside financial institutions remains calm but alert. Official confirmations have not yet been released, and most central banks have maintained silence, as is customary in sensitive financial operations. Yet the evidence continues to accumulate, from data logs, insider chatter, and now verified rate flashes on multiple systems. It's the type of convergence that rarely happens by accident. Traders describe it as the calm before the storm, a period when activity spikes in background systems before official market disclosure. For everyday currency holders, especially those following the Iraqi Dinar and Vietnamese Dong stories for years, this is a moment charged with cautious optimism. The question now is not whether movement is happening, it's whether this marks the start of full activation or simply the prelude to a controlled rollout. As of this hour, banking insiders continue to monitor for additional updates, and the world waits quietly, knowing that if confirmed, This development could signal a historic transformation in the global financial order, one that began with a few blinking numbers on a secure digital screen. In the hours following those initial rate flashes, a quiet sense of urgency began to spread through financial circles around the world. Not panic, but precision. Sources within major financial hubs such as New York, Frankfurt, and Singapore confirmed that overnight monitoring teams were instructed to remain on standby for what was described internally as system synchronization continuity. This phrase, according to former central bank technicians, typically refers to the process where currency rates are aligned across multiple trading and clearing platforms before an official market introduction. If this interpretation is correct, it means the IQD and VND are not merely being tested for data integrity, they are being positioned for active deployment within the international monetary framework. At the same time, regional news agencies in Baghdad and Hanoi quietly reported that both nations' finance ministries had conducted late-night meetings with central bank governors. Officially, these were described as routine economic consultations, but insiders say they focused on final confirmation of digital exchange infrastructure readiness. The timing of these meetings aligns too perfectly with the observed rate testing to be coincidental. Observers familiar with international finance note that such coordination is rarely limited to the nations directly involved. Behind the scenes, global entities like the IMF, the World Bank, and the BIs play pivotal roles in facilitating monetary transitions of this scale. Each institution provides oversight, ensuring compliance with international trade, debt, and liquidity protocols. When two emerging economies, particularly those as strategically positioned as Iraq and Vietnam, move toward currency elevation, it sets off a chain of recalibration across the banking spectrum. For example, foreign exchange algorithms, global reserve asset ratios, and sovereign debt evaluations all require real-time updates. These processes cannot be improvised. They must be carefully choreographed, often over weeks or even months. Thus, what the public sees today, the flashes, the leaks, the whispered confirmations, are likely the visible results of preparations that have been underway for much longer than anyone has realized. In Iraq's case, there has been a noticeable acceleration of structural readiness over the past year. The Central Bank of Iraq, a CBI, completed its international audit certification in compliance with Basel III liquidity standards, marking a critical milestone toward global recognition. Furthermore, Iraq has expanded its gold reserves, increased oil export efficiency through new contracts with China and India, and stabilized domestic inflation at an impressive 2.5%, a figure rarely achieved in post-conflict economies. Vietnam, on the other hand, has built an economic foundation centered on trade resilience and technological innovation. With over $450 billion in annual export revenue and one of Asia's fastest-growing manufacturing sectors, Vietnam has emerged as a regional powerhouse, often referred to as the new industrial heart of Southeast Asia. The country's strong ties with the United States, Japan, and South Korea have given it both economic leverage and diplomatic stability, key elements that international regulators demand before allowing any currency valuation shift. Meanwhile, data emerging from interbank reporting systems suggests that liquidity buffers are being quietly adjusted across multiple regions. Tier 1 and Tier 2 banks, those responsible for handling large institutional trades, have reportedly increased their non-deliverable forward (ZNDF) positions on both IQD and VND. This type of financial movement is a known precursor to active rate deployment. It implies that traders and institutions are preparing for a reprice scenario, even if official confirmations have not yet been announced. In simpler terms, they are positioning themselves ahead of the public curve. Such behavior mirrors historical precedents. Before the revaluation of the Kuwaiti dinar in 1991 and the stabilization of the euro transition in 1999, similar liquidity shifts occurred discreetly but decisively. History, it seems, may be repeating itself, only this time on a more globalized, digitally interconnected stage. Adding further weight to these developments is the ongoing modernization of financial technologies. The quiet but powerful quantum financial system, QFS, which operates as a parallel yet secure infrastructure for international settlements, has seen noticeable activity spikes in recent days. Analysts monitoring blockchain-like transaction ledgers linked to the QFS have recorded multiple test pings between central bank nodes in Iraq, Vietnam, and the United States. These pings are typically used to validate communication pathways before activating live transfers or recalibration codes. A financial data consultant based in Frankfurt explained, when you see consistent QFS test patterns followed by Tier 1 synchronization, it usually signals imminent transition. It's the digital equivalent of an orchestra tuning up before the performance begins. While the average citizen remains unaware of these operations, financial insiders describe the mood as one of measured anticipation. There is no chaos, no leaks of mass instability, only methodical coordination. Central banks are maintaining silence not because they are unprepared, but because premature disclosure could trigger speculation, inflationary movements, or unwanted capital shifts. Instead, communication has been confined to encrypted networks and classified briefing rooms. This strategic quietness is what gives global resets their defining characteristic. They happen not in the chaos of breaking news, but in the calm precision of midnight transactions. Now, as trading platforms in Asia and Europe transition through their daily cycles, analysts continue to observe subtle but unmistakable signs of readiness. Transaction volumes on cross-currency pairs involving IQD and VND have increased by small but statistically significant percentages. The financial world watches as if holding its breath, waiting for confirmation that these two currencies, long dormant and undervalued, are finally stepping onto the global stage. And while no official statement has yet been made, the silent alignment of systems, codes, and institutions across continents suggests that what began as a series of test flashes may soon emerge as the opening act of one of the most consequential monetary transformations of our time. As the global markets entered a new trading cycle, the sense of quiet anticipation deepened. In financial centers from New York to Abu Dhabi, analysts were now speaking in cautious but confident tones, recognizing that the window for a potential currency activation event appeared to be narrowing. The Iraqi Dinar and Vietnamese Dong, long regarded as undervalued currencies tethered to developing economies, were now being discussed in the same breath as major world currencies. What was once speculation had evolved into verifiable system activity, and insiders were describing the unfolding situation as a transition in slow motion. Deliberately paced, globally coordinated, and technologically precise. Overnight monitoring reports indicated that rate synchronization patterns remained stable across several key nodes in the international banking grid. This consistency was critical. It signaled that the recalibration processes, involving liquidity pools, exchange rate feeds, and interbank settlement layers, were holding alignment, a technical prerequisite before any public activation could occur. Such stability was not the result of chance. It reflected an immense amount of planning and cooperation across nations, institutions, and technologies. Meanwhile, economic signals from Iraq and Vietnam continued to strengthen the narrative that these nations were prepared for global financial reintegration. Government officials have been working with the International Monetary Fund on what has been described as a strategic transparency initiative, a program designed to modernize reporting systems, streamline foreign investment protocols, and improve accountability in oil revenue management. The effort has earned positive recognition from international observers, cited as a crucial step toward restoring confidence in Iraq's economic data integrity. Parallel to this, Vietnam's government has continued expanding trade corridors through new partnerships under the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP, effectively linking its economy to the world's largest free trade network. These moves reflect not only economic ambition, but also deliberate synchronization with global regulatory frameworks, the kind of groundwork that must be in place before any nation's currency can achieve full convertibility and fair value recognition on the open market. Financial historians have pointed out that the conditions currently surrounding Iraq and Vietnam bear striking similarities to those preceding other landmark currency events in modern history. When Japan's yen transitioned to post-war valuation in the 1950s, or when Germany's Deutsche Mark became a powerhouse of European recovery, both processes followed a pattern. Years of structural rebuilding, international compliance verification, and then quietly, almost suddenly, rate activation. In each instance, the transformation did not occur in public spectacle, but through silent coordination between central banks, ministries, and global clearinghouses. Today, the evidence suggests that both Iraq and Vietnam have reached that same phase. The last piece remaining, the public confirmation, may now depend on geopolitical timing rather than technical readiness. Given the current balance of international power, ongoing trade realignments between East and West, it would not be surprising if the activation timing were being managed to ensure maximum stability across financial markets. Behind the curtain, data movement continues. Analysts monitoring interbank feeds have detected recurring synchronization pulses, repeating every few hours, a pattern commonly associated with system readiness verification. These are not speculative signals, they are technical heartbeats of a network preparing for recalibration. In addition, trading desks have observed that liquidity providers in the Gulf region, particularly those in Kuwait, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates, have begun quietly adjusting their regional basket valuations. This subtle maneuvering indicates that Middle Eastern economies are preparing for a rebalanced regional currency environment, one that could be reshaped by Iraq's long-anticipated emergence onto the international trading stage. Similarly, in Southeast Asia, Vietnam's trade-linked currencies have shown an unusual tightening in volatility margins, another telltale sign of pre-adjustment stabilization. Still, in the midst of all these movements, central authorities remain silent. There are no public declarations, no press conferences, no sudden announcements, only data. The tone in professional circles is one of deliberate patience. Veteran currency analysts, recalling past revaluations and rate transitions, remind observers that such transformations do not occur overnight in the eyes of the public. Even when they are already unfolding behind the scenes, the nature of modern monetary policy demands quiet execution, not spectacle. Once activation occurs, the transition must appear seamless, as if it had always been there. Stability, not surprise, is the ultimate objective. And yet, in the calm precision of this process lies its own quiet drama. The world may wake up one morning to find that two currencies, long dismissed as peripheral, have quietly stepped into parity with global peers, altering the economic landscape for years to come. As the final layers of synchronization appear to lock into place, the question on everyone's mind is no longer whether the global currency reset is real, when its first visible phase will be acknowledged. The pieces fit too perfectly to ignore: the technical tests, the liquidity movements, the international cooperation, and the unprecedented silence. This is not rumor, this is operation. If confirmed, it would mark a turning point in global finance, the moment when emerging economies assert their rightful value in the world market, supported by modern infrastructure and international consensus. For the countless observers, investors, and ordinary citizens who have followed the Iraqi Dinar and Vietnamese Dong stories for years, this may finally be the moment history remembers. And so, as we conclude this report, one message remains clear: the world is watching, systems are humming, and the signals are converging. The calm may not last much longer. The financial tide is shifting, quietly but powerfully, toward a new alignment of value and stability. Stay alert, stay informed, and stay prepared. Because when confirmation finally arrives, it will not just change numbers on a screen. It could redefine how nations, markets, and individuals understand the meaning of wealth itself. If you found this report valuable, make sure to subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, and turn on notifications, because the next update could mark the moment the world's financial order officially changes.